What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today Devil May Cry 5. It's a little bit hard to believe, but it's actually been over 10 years since the last time we got a game in this series, and I know that a lot of people are a little bit concerned about that. After such a long gap in time, are they still able to make Dante seem magic, the fights still seem insane, and every single combo just extra stylish? Well, let me just go ahead and put those fears at ease. Devil May Cry 5 is fantastic. From start to finish, this is a game that has so many gory combos, epic moments, and really the biggest surprise is the fact that every single character that you can play as is even better than they have ever been. Now let me just confess, I've never really considered myself a giant Devil May Cry fan. I have managed to beat every game in the franchise, but it's not something that I just really sit down and play over and over again. That is until I got to this game. DMC5 is something that just practically begs you to play it over and over again, repeating missions, getting higher scores, and trying to just fight to get that next big upgrade. But before we get into that, let's just really analyze what this story is about. This time around, it's not as centered on Dante as it is the side characters, the new gentleman V, and of course Nero. Now the cool thing about this is that they really actually do something a little bit different in this game in my opinion, which really works, which is that this is much more story focused, on particular with the characters. We see flashbacks, we see really cool in-depth moments that show us a little bit more about the past of this world. It makes us understand the fact that these people do more than just walk around slashing up different demons. They actually had childhoods and lives. They really are people before they're demon slayers. Thankfully, this game doesn't just bombard you with cutscenes. Usually each one of them is only about a minute long and is just crazy over-the-top stuff like a van flipping in slow motion as people blast stuff and smoke cigarettes as they just go cartwheeling through the air, or a really cool scene where they're just talking trash to giant demons. Now, that stuff is great. I feel like this game has such a brilliant balance between making you understand why you're in this fight, while also just saying, okay, it's time to chop stuff up. Now, I really want to get to the thing that is the most exciting about this project, and what makes me just absolutely fall in love with this, which is that there are multiple people we play throughout this game. There's actually several different heroes, and each one of them plays completely different. But the biggest thing is that every single one of them is so exciting to play. First up is, of course, Nero. He's sort of the main character because you do play him the longest, but he's somebody that's very much a pure brute force basher. He's somebody that's just liquid force in motion, and many of his skills are based around his newly installed robotic arm. He can use this to grab foes from long range, or even use it to escape from special attacks. But what's really interesting in it is that there are different arms that he can equip to do different skills, like amplifying his sword attacks, or maybe being able to electrocute stun several enemies simultaneously. But all of this comes at a very high cost. A lot of these skills actually blow up the robotic arm. Thankfully, they're laying all over the place, but it makes it where you sort of treat them as very important bullets. You always have to try and keep a mental inventory to realize what is the cost. You need to calculate whether or not it's worth risking that next super attack in order to try and get away, or if you should just take the hit. Nero is awesome, and honestly, he's probably my favorite person in this game, but it's hard to even say that because the other people are just as interesting. Now let's focus on the newcomer. This is V. Much of the plotline really focuses on who this person is, and to be quite frank, what he is, because V is very mysterious. Something about him just seems demonic, but he also seems like he could be just a human in some form. But what's really cool is that V does not fight like anybody else in any game I have ever seen before. V is a summoner, but what I mean by that is that he has several different minions that are constantly sitting around him, specifically a crow that flies around and shoots laser beams that are made of electricity, and also what looks to be a giant panther, which sticks on the ground and only does melee attacks. But what's really cool is that both of these can do crazy combos to try and juggle people around, knock people up in the air, and eventually, if you build up enough energy, you can unleash one extra monster called the Nightmare, which is a huge, basically incredible Hulk-looking dude who just smashes people in the face and shoots giant energy beams all over the place. The interesting added layer to this, though, is that these creatures, as tough as they are, cannot actually kill the demons. For whatever reason, they are able to chop stuff up and do damage, but only V himself is able to execute them, and this is done by basically teleporting to them and tapping them with his cane, and when this happens, they just shatter like glass. This is such an interesting element because it makes it where you're in the background trying to command each of your minions to do combos and uppercuts and stunts, and simultaneously you're trying not to get hit yourself because V takes some major damage. Boss fights specifically are so cool as V because you constantly need to try and worry about when you can do your giant specials or summon up your giant monster, or when you just need to absolutely dodge and try and let one of your little buddies take a hit instead of you. This is just such a brilliant methodology because this is a hack and slash game. This series is very much based around just throwing yourself into the mess and chopping your way out, but these characters, they feel like a different flavoring of that. I'm sorry I'm so hyped, but really, after beating this game twice, I'm just so excited to go back and do a third playthrough. But speaking of thirds, we need to talk about the biggest player in the team, which is of course, the legendary Dante. He is the classic visceral powerhouse. In every single form, he is a monster. But what's really cool is that in this game, he has multiple weapons, several different fighting stances like gunslinger or more defensive stuff, or just everything. But what's really cool is that he even has multiple freaking long-range weapons. He's really just made to be the most adaptive of the fighters. That way, at any range or any distance, he is the most deadly of any single person. Now, what's really cool about him is that it seems like they very much reworked his speed and force in this game. It's really interesting playing as him again after I've recently played through Devil May Cry 4, because it seems like they tried to tinker with his damage levels to make it where he does feel older. I mean, we gotta keep in mind at this point that Dante is a bit of an old man. Not in a negative sense, but this guy has been in the fight for decades. I mean, the guy has seen so much damage and defeated so many world-destroying demons that at this point he is needing to catch his breath a little bit, and I love that. I love seeing a older character still in the fight and still being such a deadly freaking awesome dude. The biggest thing that I absolutely think is perfect in this game, though, is that it actually manages to make you feel cool. So in this game, I keep talking about how great these characters are and how cool their combat is, but what's really manages to just be conveyed in such a deep, amazing way is that you feel awesome for playing as these awesome characters. Like, let me just give you a random example. Look at this. So right here, basically there are tons and tons of upgrades. Whenever you're actually killing demons and stuff, you're collecting your souls, and you can spend this to buy new attacks, more health, or different materials like the devil triggers that you need for different stuff like that. Well, some of the skills you can end up purchasing do things that actually change how your character plays in just the general sense, like being able to do a double jump or being able to do a super fast sprint. Now, each of the characters have their own version of a sprint, but let's look at V's. V actually, when he gets going, coasts on a cloud of darkness. He is literally floating on pure shadow, and let me just tell you, this feels awesome. It is like a demonic freaking race car, and I love it. This game, from wall to wall, impressed the heck out of me. It blew up every single expectation I had, and was literally 100 times cooler than I ever could have imagined. This is by far the best game in the entire franchise, and I just want to play it again and again. You do need to actually do multiple playthroughs to see everything, because there are actually different avenues, where certain times you have to play as one character and another character for a different section, and that's actually what brings me into one of the most interesting aspects, which is that there is a sort of drop-in, drop-out co-op, but you can't really control it. Like right here, this is actually another player who just randomly showed up through the internet and is helping defend me. He's actually backing me up in this fight. I can't wave to him, I can't talk to him, but even still, in this single moment, we are brothers in the same fight. It's nice to just basically be in these battles, especially when it's like a crazy boss fight where you're sliding in a church down a hill, control and have another player there backing you up. And when you do a second playthrough, you can actually be those other characters. Instead of just having this person from the internet help me out, I can be Nero for this playthrough and he'll be V, or something like that. It's really, really cool. If I had any complaints in this game at all, and it's actually just a super tiny one, is I do wish that we could actually play as every character right from the start. It takes a long time to unlock everybody, and really, I think it'd be cool if we really got to choose a little bit more about what we were doing in each level, instead of just being forced at the beginning to be certain heroes. I'm actually not even going to remove any points from the score for this. It's just something that I do wish that they had in there, because every one of these dudes is so freaking good, I wish I could just have access to them right at the very, very beginning. Okay, so we've heard a ton of good and a little bit of bad, but let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Devil May Cry 5 a 10 out of 10. So far this year has been very, very interesting, with games that are amazing and games that are a little bit of a dumpster fire, but I'm extremely pleased that this one manages to just really pay off that hype. Really, I just have to give giant props to all the developers involved in this, because you guys did it. You pulled off the sequel that fans truly deserved. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.